Welcome to the new improved Solid Signal podcast for the week of March 25th, 2019. Why new and improved? Well, we did a few upgrades in our studio equipment, and things should be even better for everybody out there to listen and enjoy. I don't necessarily think that our podcast listeners were complaining, but I'm glad to have a little bit of upgraded equipment, and I'm glad to be able to use it to give you the best podcast experience possible. It seems like podcasts have gotten really popular lately, and I'm glad to welcome the new listeners that we have to the Solid Signal podcast. You are always appreciated, and I'm always glad to know that our podcast continues to grow. It's been going continuously with a very short break here and there for about 6 years now, believe it or not. Anyway, the subject of the story for this week is commercial satellite television. Now, don't turn off because, you don't think that that's something that's super interesting to you, but there's a couple of bits that I think we should talk about. I think that it's important to remember that satellite television has a really, really strong future ahead of it. It's very trendy to say, satellite television and all forms of pay television are on a downward spiral because, I think that you can make that argument. I think that you can make the argument that in a lot of cases that, unfortunately, traditional pay TV has priced itself out of existence. But after several years of cord cutting and streaming growth, what we're really seeing now is that streaming is starting to price itself out of existence. There's a lot of content out there, and I think there's a lot of innovation. But when you look at the big boys, the HBO-type people, Netflix-type people, prices keep going up, and fragmentation keeps increasing. You might not like hearing this, but there's going to be several new streaming services, and you're going to want to pay for them, especially if you don't have a traditional pay TV service, and it's just going to cost you more and more money. Disney has finished its acquisition of Fox, which means they're also majority owners of Hulu. It remains to be seen how that works out. But one thing for sure is that Disney's new Disney Plus service is going to get more and more and more expensive. This kind of thing is not just expensive for home users, and that's what I really want to talk about today. Commercial television customers really don't benefit very much from streaming. First of all, it takes a lot of bandwidth. If you're running 20 televisions, you need a lot more bandwidth. And second of all, a lot of streaming services are just not open to commercial users. It has to do with licensing and all sorts of weird lawyery stuff. It may eventually come to the point where streaming is a good option for commercial users, but today it isn't. And that's why satellite television remains a really strong option for commercial users. First of all, it's a broadcast medium as opposed to a multicast medium. Let me back up and explain that for a minute. A broadcast medium is something where the signal comes down and all you have to do is put up an antenna to receive it, or a satellite dish. The broadcast source doesn't know and doesn't care how many people are using it because it's just putting out full power for everybody to find. A multicast medium is like streaming, which every time somebody uses it, they're contacting a server and making a unique transaction, if you will, that takes up additional bandwidth and uses additional hardware. So businesses benefit strongly from a broadcast approach to television, not just because of licensing, like I said, and not just because of bandwidth, but also because of scale. It really doesn't matter all these little problems. When you're talking about 2 or 3 televisions, you start putting in 25 or 30 televisions in a sports bar, you got a problem. And when it comes to commercial installations, it starts with traditional satellite TV distribution, but there are a whole range of parts that are available only to commercial customers, and there's a whole different form of certification that commercial installers need in order to make things work. That's why commercial customers need to rely on satellite TV dealers like Solid Signal. Believe it or not, unless you are a big company, say, for example, you're McDonald's or Google or whatever, someplace with a lot of locations, someplace with a lot of money. Working with AT&T directly may not even be possible. At any rate, it's almost never going to be the right choice for a commercial customer. Commercial customers need to rely on solution providers in their areas who can be on site to manage things and to really understand the need not just for television, but for all sorts of things. Oftentimes, one provider can handle television, alarm, network wiring, surveillance monitoring, anything where there's a signal and where there's video. That's, all the purview of a commercial installer. And like I said, many times installers like the folks over at Solid Signal will do all of these things for you, monitor all of these things in a single solution provider kind of mindset. That's, I think, what you're finding people really want when it comes to business. Even small businesses benefit from working this way. It's just really, it makes a lot more sense from a business point of view to know what you're getting. And you can't be expected to know how all of these technologies work together or don't work together, and that's why you need to find an expert. By now, you've pretty much figured out that I'm talking about Solid Signal and its commercial arm called Signal Connect. If you are looking at some sort of video distribution, cellular telephone booster, networking, surveillance, you owe it to yourself to not just take a piecemeal approach, but to find a solution provider who is going to take care of you. And there are very few companies who will do this on a national basis. Solid Signal is one of them, and that's why I think you should give them a call. I know that you will be glad to find out there is somebody who finally speaks your language. The number that you want to call is 866-726-4182, and that's how you're going to get to a commercial representative who really understands your needs. Next week, we'll be talking about a whole bunch of other fun stuff. I already have something incredibly cranky planned, and I know how much you love it when I go off the rails. But that's about it for me for the podcast this week. Have a great one.